Hello and welcome to the NerdLore podcast. This is a different kind of episode. Today we'll be featuring a new segment on NerdLore called Nerd Light, where we will have branching out guests and talking about different kinds of topics. Today's topic of discussion generally is Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter World, the movie, and Rise. Two of those things that are coming out in the next coming months. And today our guest is Jace, a friend of mine, a capital nerd, and also known as Anime Master 1991. Where you got to be Dante, and literally my character putting on Dante's hair looks like a 50-year-old dad who's not willing to let go of his youth. Skandle. Now, Jace, I want to ask before we get started, what made you think that I want to say it's the audacity to say that you are an anime master. What brought that along?
I can only say this. I was 13 years old at the time. I was and still am a massive weeb. It was the first thing that came to mind.
So would you say that Monster Hunter is a game made for weebs?
Depending on the weapon, yes, because there's two in particular I can think of that are the absolute weebiest of them all
Is it
for
is it
for
dual blades and
years.
katana?
Yes,
I knew it.
you literally Naruto run with the dual blades,
Oh,
and you
do
do the
not.
biggest anime flashiest moves with the longsword. You tell me they aren't weeb weapons.
You can't hold a katana. Katanas are just made to be weeb weapons at this point. They
I
just
mean,
are.
yes.
So we are both players of Monster Hunter World. Jace has been playing excessively more than I have. I have just over, I think, 180 hours. Why don't you give them a little bit of your history with Monster Hunter so the viewers get an idea of what a capital nerd you are?
So honestly, the very first time I ever dealt with Monster Hunter, period, was a demo that popped up on my Nintendo 3DS for, I believe, Monster Hunter 4 on the 3DS. It was a free demo. I took a look at it. It was actually not that easy to follow. I immediately deleted the demo and said, this isn't for me, quite frankly. So the very first time I ever touched it, because I had no idea what I was doing, I was like, nah, this isn't for me. When Monster Hunter World came out, I got pestered by a friend to purchase the game. She basically told me, "You're gonna buy this game," and would not stop for the whole rest of the day until I told her, "Fine, I'll do it." I went through, did the
Sounds
download.
eerily familiar to someone I know who pestered me to play this game to the point where they bought me the game. Can you guess who that is? Go ahead. I'll let you take a wild guess. Go ahead.
No, I can't think of a single person of who that might have been.
Yeah, I'm sure you can't.
No, not at all. But so yeah, I ended up purchasing the game on the PlayStation 4 when it first came out. That was back in 2017. God, it's been a while since it released. And playing together with her, the tutorials were a whole lot easier to follow. I immediately fell in love with the game. Since then, I've got about 600 hours on the PlayStation 4, and then another 800 hours plus on the PC when that released on PC as well.
Right. So I want to inform everyone that Jace is not paid to play this game. Jace just loves the game so much that she spent 800 hours on one and 600 on another. Like essentially replayed Skyrim 5 times on two different plays. You are definitely a being of sheer commitment and will. We can throw that out there.
What can I say? It's a fun game. I absolutely loved like really just getting into it. I liked that as I got better on, if I saw other people do it, throwing up SOSs for help with certain quests, I liked being able to just jump in, help them out if need be. Part of the reason for why I played so often on PC was I would find Twitch streamers playing the game, and I would ask them, "Hey, is it all right if I jump in with you and join you?" Several of them said, "Yeah, that's no problem. Go ahead." And two or three of them ended up becoming pretty good friends online as well. So we would just always get online and play together. That's why I got so many hours really thrown in.
That's fair. So, I just want to once again stop for just a moment and say what an absolutely nice person Jace is for all of you watching. Goes out there and just gives charity to all these streamers who have no idea what they're doing. And I can tell you right now that that is the majority of streamers. Don't you agree? This was my. So we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about Monster Hunter World in just its core context, which we're going to talk about the story, we're going to talk about gameplay, and then we're going to talk about the unbelievable amount of content that they're still releasing in the form of events and DLC. So I can tell you right off the bat, Jace, that I don't remember the core of the story at all. Like, I remember the characters, their faces, no names, because they're all like, I'm Habuka, and I'm like, that's great. I'm Starling, that thing I always name myself. And they're like, you really need to get this monster taken out, otherwise we're gonna run out of food. And I'm like, oh no, click 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 click, just getting through that. I just wanted to fight some big ass monsters, honestly. I just wanted to beat some ass.
Well, and right there, you got the core of the game. It's all that really is to it, just going in and find monsters.
That's true. So what? So you would be the expert in the room about the story, because I don't. I have nothing. I don't remember any. I remember there's an old lady. I think she dies. I remember there's a bunch of buff dudes and the handler, which calls you partner, and I hate her. I hate her so much. If I could kill her, I would. And cats.
Oh,
Oh, there's so many cats.
yes.
Palicos. So many cats. So, what was your favorite part of the Monster Hunter story?
I liked the, I guess, the extra world building, the ecology that they showcased with the story on this one. Monster Hunter franchise, this series altogether really has not had like the most amazing story elements to each game, because the main concept is really just you go in, you fight monsters, and you get better gear and go on from there. This one, I really enjoyed the basic plot that they were going on with. So essentially, what was going on, the fleet that you are part of, the Fifth Fleet, is going to the what is known as the New World. It's a whole new continent that they just recently discovered, just got the chance to explore. And so they're going there to research it and to research why all the elder dragons that get shown, that do appear in the old world and other areas, migrate to this location every so often for reasons unknown. They're going there to try and figure out why they do this. On the way, they come across a massive mountain like elder dragon called Zora Magdaros, who is also migrating to this world. They're really curious as to what this thing is and why it's going, so they also try to research Zora in the process. Eventually, as they're going through the different areas, discovering new monsters, doing research on everything, they come across the tracks of Zora Magdaros, as well as the tracks of another elder dragon that shows up on top of Zora Magdaros, and that you had to kind of fend off for a little bit, called Nergigante. All these monsters, constantly going to this location, are actually migrating to this area as a place to die, essentially. Like, this is where the elder dragons come when it is their time to, like, pass on. And it's actually kind of evidenced in one of the locations within the game called the Rotten Vale. When you go into this area, it is nothing but corpses. There's corpses, bones. It's the entire place is rotting. It is where elder dragons and several other monsters go when their time is over.
Did you see the moment in my face where you said that it is essentially the elephant graveyard of the the elder dragons, and it just that like surprised. I didn't know that. I played for 180. I had no idea that's what the plot was. I was like,
Yeah,
I didn't know why we
that's
were
what the
here.
Rotten Veil is.
That is what the Rotten Veil. I honestly, I thought I knew we were there to study. I thought there were a bunch of new monsters, which there are several new monsters featured in this game, and they're still releasing a lot of new monsters. But my whole thought process behind it was like there was some cataclysmic event. This is my reading comprehension is that of a 2-year-old. So obviously, the bulk of this story is told through dialogue. It's told through reading, and there's some decent voice acting in it. I would say like not amazing, but you know,
I mean,
there's a lot of pieces and a lot of parts.
there's some pretty good big name voice actors featured in there. Matthew Mercer is actually one of the voice actors in this game.
I am such a hard on for Matt Mercer. No, like such a nerd. I will nerd out every day for Matt Mercer. There are
Yeah,
quite a few
I was very
too.
happy to see him in there.
Yes. So the other points that I want to talk about was stories that, like you said, with the Rotten Veil, a lot of the story kind of gets told through almost context clues where you can see the damage the monsters are causing as they tear through. You find footprints and you actually have to track them with bugs that do it for you. You know, and those bugs are 100% known to break necks. If you have no idea what that means, it means that they control your camera. So there are moments where you're like, oh, I'm tracking this monster. I know exactly where to go, pick up a track, and the bugs are like, they will snap your neck in a different direction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's quite rough.
yeah, that's rough, buddy. But the other parts that you don't, that you also get to see that are probably my favorite, like procedurally generated thing in Monster Hunter is when you're in an area, like say you're doing an expedition, which is just you're free running around a particular area, and two monsters just start like they just meet up and they square off on sight. Like there's two screams and they just immediately start going at it. And I'm like, that is so cool. Just a fucking big electric cat fighting a dinosaur dragon that shoots bombs out of its nipples. Like the ironically, these are actual monsters. They're just horribly described.
To an extent.
Yeah.
I will say actually something really cool about that is the Monster Hunter World is the first time that they've done such a thing. In all the older games, the AI is not as intelligent to be able to just do the turf wars and the combating each other with the monsters and interacting with each other. When you encountered multiple monsters on the map, their entire goal and focus was you. There was no like them interacting with each other. The AI didn't always quite work that well for trying to walking around each other or passing around or anything. They were just they would kind of be moving robotically around on the map a little bit, and their entire focus was just you.
Hmm.
So if you encountered multiple, you were kind of screwed because you had to deal with all of them attacking you at once.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I just had a random thought I wanted to run by you, okay?
Hmm.
How do you feel that okay, in the future, when we're all part robot and VR is just acclimated into, you know, home gaming systems, how do you feel Monster Hunter will be on a VR system?
I think that would be really, really cool to do
I know. I just wanted to nerd out about it. Just imagining
because
like flipping through the air like that. I'd be
oh
so
gosh,
happy.
yeah, being able to just that would be disorienting with the insect glaive. The
Yes.
flipping around and everything, that would be so disorienting. I don't know if I could handle doing that one with VR. But the rest, like picking up the bow and actually having to, pull back and release the arrows as you're going through, or like if you can actually like kind of like almost feel the weight of picking up a massive great sword or a hammer and feeling that the weight of that swing as you're trying to either chop off a tail or bash the monster's head in a VR setting. I would love that. That would be so cool.
Folks, I can't wait to tell Jace that, you know, great swords actually exist in real life and you can hold them.
Yeah, I'm aware that great swords exist in real life,
So
but
you're like, the
the
weight, I
ones
just want to hold it. I'm like, you can. They're real things you can hold.
Yes, but the average person would not be able to actually pick up and swing the greatswords from that game with the same ease as your hunter can.
Well, yeah, I mean that's fair. I know what you're going for. I think your phrasing was the thing that just made me laugh.
Well, because you can just take a random stick and swing it, and you're not really feeling much resistance or weight to it because it's just a stick. It's basically what it's going to be like if you're holding a controller. But if they can still somehow get that simulation of like, you want to try and move fast with your controller, but you can't because your weapon is technically very heavy in the game. If they could actually get it to where you can kind of feel that weight in a VR setting.
Okay, okay, I can see where you're going with that. I can see that. So I'll throw out to everyone there that my favorite weapon of all time in Monster Hunter World is the Insect Glaive. I think it's the most fun to watch. I think it's I don't know if it'd be the most dynamic or the most reactive, but for me,
It can be.
I think like the combination of having to react of like you're in the air and you're like, oh, it's going that way. Well, I'm gonna just air poof that way. I think that's probably my makes it my favorite.
Just air poof. I like that.
I'm an air poof. Basically you're like part airbender but also part insect nerd. I
I mean, true,
So
true.
what is your favorite weapon of Monster Hunter?
I
That's a
think as
deep
far as
sigh.
all-time favorite, well, I've tried multiple different ones through the years that I've been playing. On PS4, I started with the bow because I was not used to the sharpening mechanic with the rest of the weapons, where you would lose sharpness over time, so you actually had to sharpen it in order to try and make sure that you could actually hit the monster.
Mhm.
I was not used to that, so I started off with bow, and I did really, really love the weapon. It was a really fun one to choose. I've used the insect glaive. I've used the hunting horn. There's several different ones that I've used and really enjoy using. But I think my absolute favorite one by far has to be the hammer. Honestly,
Why? Keep going. Why? Why the hammer?
I love how simple the combos are. Really, like all the other weapons out there have like these crazy combos for attacks, and yeah, sure they can get some really big flashy moves and everything, but the hammer is just so simplistic in what you're doing. You really just you're trying to smack the head of the monster into the ground, trying to knock that sucker out so it just falls down so you can still get the most like damage done to its face while it's on the ground, or trying to break a wing, trying to like damage a leg, something to try and hinder its movement. I love, especially when you're on a hill and you do a slide attack with the hammer, you start spinning over and over end to end, and you're just doing continuous damage as you're spinning forward. I love it. It's just so much fun to play.
Spoken like a true barbarian. Absolutely. Okay. I can get behind that.
It's just great.
I have never used the hammer. Actually no, it's not true. I used the hammer one time and all I did was just beat the hell out of its foot for 20 minutes and I'm like this is the worst thing I've ever experienced. Like I don't know what I'm doing. But that's in the past and we're moving on to the future. The future being Monster Hunter Rise, which is a new game coming out for the Nintendo Switch that I will be purchasing and I believe Jace you will also be purchasing it.
It's already pre-ordered and ready to go.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So don't remember the trailer that well. I remember there being a dog, and I was like, "Oh, doggy," and then I just zoned out. I'm like, "Yeah, monsters. You get their skin and turn it into lance, turn it into armor." Is there any new
Right.
features that we're going to be looking forward to in this game?
So similar to the clutch claw that you used in World, you're going to have something known as the wire bug. There's going to be a couple random small little bugs like that dotted around the area, so you can temporarily collect just an extra one, but you'll have two wire bugs that you can use at any given time, plus a third randomly if you find one out in the wild. And what these will allow you to do is basically you can launch the wire bug up into the air, and it'll launch you up into an aerial stance. And then you can use the wire bug again if you so desire to grab hold of the monster's face or its wing, leg, however you could just grab hold of the monster. It'll pull yourself forward to the monster so you can go ahead and do an attack. There was combos that they showcased where, like for Sword and Shield, you had the sword attached to the wire bug itself, and you were swinging it around like a giant lasso with the sword attached,
Okay, now
like
I was like,
slicing and dicing.
grappling hooks, we've seen all that before, but then you're like, oh, you turn your sword into, like basically a whip. Okay,
Basically, yeah.
okay. Now we're talking. Now we're talking.
There
What a
was there was another moment where the hunter launched himself into the air with a wire bug. He grabbed a mega barrel bomb out of his inventory and slammed it down onto the monster for damage.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
This almost sounds like
there's
a
some
hack
really
and
cool
slash.
stuff. It's some really cool stuff that you can do with it. It's going to help with traversing the area as well because it's going to be a lot more vertical compared to the other games. Like you'll be able to actually properly climb up the mountains and wire bug your way up onto like the tops of these massive, massive zones they're gonna have in there now.
Okay. Okay.
It's gonna be so cool. There's a whole bunch of new endemic life thrown in there, so you can find again like more insects where you go and collect it and you'll get a little bit more stamina added to your bar or a little bit more health added to your bar versus just starting off with max health, max stamina right at the beginning of the hunt. There was a small snail that they featured recently called the Escargot.
Oh my god. Cancel the whole dev team. Cancel them. Get on Twitter. End their careers. They don't deserve anything. They deserve nothing
it's
but animosity.
it's adorable.
Say it again.
You
What
pick
was
it
it?
up, Escargot,
I hate it.
because when you pick it up, you can take it with you, place it down next to you, and it releases a healing cloud, just like
They need to
the healing
escar
power
go
token here.
away.
It's adorable.
I I'm done. So we don't actually know anything besides probably a couple of short trailers of Monster Hunter Rise. Besides,
Yeah,
we did get a we do have an initial release date of March 26, 2021, which
I don't know if that's still the same
I
date.
I
I
don't think
want to
it
say
is either.
something changed recently on that one due to the issues that Capcom has been having lately.
Right. Well, we won't get into that, but we will say that they recently ran into a large amount of turmoil with certain individuals, and now there's quite a bit of there are quite a few leaks on this game. But what I wanted to move on and then bounce back because you get an idea of like what Monster Hunter is all about. Monster Hunter at like its core is all about the base game is literally like you have weapon, you hit monster till monster fall down, and you take their bones and their skin and their meat. Well, not their meat, probably not their meat. I take the meat.
Well, actually, yeah, they're me as well because if you go to the canteen in the game, you can actually roast Rathalos tails and all sorts of other things to cook for like well done steaks out in the field.
That I forgot about that, but yeah, you take the meat and you essentially craft those into new weapons and new sets of armor. Let's see, and I wanted to run back to so we've talked about story, we talked about gameplay. So the last thing I want to talk about just for Monster Hunter World is the DLC, which I think is I know the main one was Iceborne. I don't remember if there
That
was
is so. The Monster Hunter series has always had this thing where they would release a base game, so
hmm,
Monster Hunter World, and then they would release a single expansion. In the old games, this was called a G rank expansion because you would get an entirely new rank of quests and difficulty to have to try and fight your way through.
hmm,
They changed it from G rank to master rank for World because they weren't entirely sure how the rest of the world would feel or go about going into this because this is also the first time that Capcom has released worldwide a Monster Hunter title. They would always release it in Japan first, and then eventually, if it did well, release it to the rest of the world. So
Mm.
they've changed up a few things to try and make it a little bit more worldwide friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So Master Rank. That is essentially what Iceborne is. It is the G rank expansion for World. So Iceborne in and of itself is the only expansion that they are releasing for World, sadly. This is the last expansion that they're ever going to do for World. The, the most recent monster that they added in a few months ago is actually the last monster that they're going to be releasing into the game too.
Oh, really? We're that far? Well, I guess because they're probably gonna focus their entire dev team on Rise now. Yeah.
On Rise, and then potentially the next one after this, because Rise is the next one in the portable series. There is the main games, so Monster Hunter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Monster Hunter World, which is technically Monster Hunter 5. And then you have portable first, portable second, portable third, Monster Hunter Generations, which came out on the 3DS and then again on the Switch for Generations Ultimate, and then Monster Hunter Rise, which is on the Switch. Those are the portable games that are actually run by a different development team.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes. So this is the next one we're getting for the portable side. So once they're done with this one, which apparently they've been working on this for the last 4 years, which impressed me, they'll start development for Monster Hunter 6, essentially. Now, whether they'll call this Monster Hunter 6 or Monster Hunter World 2, who knows? We'll have to wait and see on that one. But I loved what they did with the DLC for this one, because they still introduced
It was
new monsters.
Yes. Some of those new
Which,
monsters were ridiculous. I still haven't
oh
finished
my
it either.
gosh.
180
No,
hours later. No, there's so much.
there are still several really, really cool, not only brand new ones that you haven't seen, but
Hmm.
old returning monsters that you haven't seen yet either. And let me tell you, some of those fights are brutal.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. Every time you say that, literally, I will play Monster Hunter with Jason. It's just there are clips on stream of when I was, the young stream boy, and quite. I can give you a little taste here. Let me back up so it doesn't peak. Jace, 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 Jace! Ah! Pretty
Yep,
much, literally the whole experience, but
memories.
memories. It wasn't that long ago.
Memories.
Crashstarling. I haven't heard that name in years. So we talked about DLC, we talked about the monsters we released, but there's one more thing with when it comes to World that we just have to go over, right? So
Mhm.
we have the seasonal events, which you get the standard. There are new event quests. There are interesting new, like, maybe switch ups of monsters. Maybe they put in like a joke monster, and then new armor, new weapons. But there
Correct.
have been so many event quests that are unbelievable crossovers, and I'm gonna list a couple. I think the three that were the most memorable. You would be able to tell me if there were more, but there was the Final Fantasy. Was it 14? There was the Final Fantasy.
Yes,
Yeah,
because it was with the MMO.
right. It came out with the MMO. That was so fun. They had
I love that
the
one.
Devil May Cry crossover where
Yep.
you got to be Dante, and literally my character putting on Dante's hair looks like a 50-year-old dad who's not willing to let go of his youth. Skandle. Um, And the third one was the Witcher series. You got to literally play as Geralt in Monster Hunter. That was crazy. It was so weird and different. Just having him exist in an entirely different universe, beating the
It
hell
was
out of
so
monsters.
awesome. I love what they did with that one. Now you only played the first half of the Witcher event.
Don't fucking call me out like that.
No. It's because the second half only released at certain times. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you had the chance to try the second one
No, I
because it just
didn't.
wasn't out at the time. So on the second part of that, instead of playing as Geralt, you got to play as your own hunter again,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to fight the ancient Leshen.
I watched YouTube videos of that, and I can tell you right now, nah,
I can tell you
good.
right now, even with master rank gear, it is a rough fight.
I'm good. I'm
It is
good.
still a rough fight, even with master rank gear.
I'm a-okay with never dealing with that. I'll live vicariously. I don't care what rewards I'm gonna get. That was horrible looking. That was
Oh god.
frustrating looking.
But they did do quite a bit more on the special event quest for that, though. There was an event where you could get Mega Man armor for your Palico.
Yes, I saw that. That was
There,
cute.
that one was fun. I really enjoyed that one. Um, for when Iceborne came out, they did a freaking um, a Resident Evil crossover.
They did? I did not. I wasn't there
Yes,
for that.
no, it was you're fighting a Black Veil Valhazak,
Uh-huh.
and you know how with regular Valhazak, if you got too close to the effluvium, the powder it would release, your
Yeah.
health got cut in half.
Yeah, the dirty fart powder. Yeah, I know.
So with this one, for that event only, if you if you succumb to the effluvium, you were turned into a zombie.
What?
You
No.
actually
You're making
walked
this up.
around no, no, you walked around shambling like a zombie. The effluvium would heal you. You couldn't use your own healing items. You couldn't run. You could only like walk, and you couldn't just immediately sheath your weapon. But you were
Hmm.
essentially like a zombie tank while you were taking on this monster fighting. And then they had the red and green herbs on the map that you could pick up and consume to cure yourself of the zombification if you wanted to get rid of it.
Capcom Capcom is one of my favorite developers just because they are actual mad lads. They do not give a fuck. They're like,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
so ridiculous.
And then two other ones that they did, these were PS exclusives. They did not come to the PC. Well, actually, they just recently released one of them for PC. They did an Horizon Zero Dawn crossover. So you got to
Oh
play
shit.
as Aloy, getting
Okay.
the bow, everything. That one was strictly PlayStation. Like that was the only way you could play that one was through PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And then this next one started off on PlayStation but has recently come to the PC. It was a Street Fighter crossover.
Hold on. Google, nah. Monster Hunter World
You
Street Fighter. I'm looking this up. It's
you could
real.
play as
It's
Ryu
real? No, it's not.
or
You're making
Sakura.
this up.
I have the Hadoken emote
Oh
on my
my god,
character.
it's real.
Yes. You could actually
Jesus
Shoryuken
Christ.
and Hadoken the monster if you so desired. And they would do damage. It would
I
be like one damage,
I'm in a
but it would do
fever
something.
dream. No, I'm in a fever dream. This is not real.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. I I'll just moving on with my life. Just
When
can't. Okay.
Capcom does an event, they go all out.
I literally like they're like it's not just like oh you can get a skin of the character. You're like nah you can turn into a zombie. You can cure yourself. You're gonna have the ability to Hadoken. Yeah, you want to be Dante? Fuck it, you can be Dante. I don't care. Fuck it, you can be Dante and your little cat companion that you have. Yeah, you can be fucking Mega Man. Who cares? Whatever crack brand they're smoking at Capcom, they need to stay on that crack brand.
And my favorite
Absolutely.
part about all of this is that those events were free.
Yes,
You
that's the
didn't have to pay extra
no.
for them. They were free add-on content,
Yes.
as was every other monster that they added in afterwards. The only thing you had to pay for was the base game
Mm-hmm.
and then the expansion. That was it.
That was it.
Afterwards, everything that released was free. And that is why I absolutely love what Capcom has done for this franchise. Like, how to keep people to come back and play? Yes. Just release free content for your game. People will come back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like so much. So we've talked. I gotta say that I'm mad that I wasn't playing for that Street Fighter. I might jump in for some of that this week.
So I
But
will say for December, they're announcing that they're going to be releasing every single event quest ever made in
mm-hmm.
Monster Hunter just open. permanently from then on, because world is essentially done. They don't need to worry about timed quests and events. You're just going to be able to just go in and do them whenever you desire now, because
S-
it's over. This is it.
So if you're looking to buy Monster Hunter World, I'll try to get this out. Right now, it's about the midway through, but mostly way through November. Try to get this out before December. Go out there and get yourself a copy of Monster Hunter World. You will not be disappointed.
Something I will add on here as well, for any of you getting a PlayStation 5, if you have the PlayStation Plus subscription, I recently discovered that there's a PlayStation Plus collection that you can download. You can just add the game straight to your library and download them and play them. Monster Hunter World is one of those ones available on there, which I was a little irked to see. You can just get that for free.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah, we're never lucky. Okay, you just have to live
no,
with
we're
that.
never lucky. But yeah, that was one of them on there. So if you don't want to buy the game itself yet, you can. If you're getting a PlayStation 5, just get it for free if you have PlayStation Plus.
Okay. So our last topic, which will be fairly short, is that in December, it's actually coming out, I believe, what was it, the 20th? Yes. Or no, December 30th of this year, 2020, they are releasing a movie, a live action with 3D animation movie about Monster Hunter. So you're sitting there thinking, what are they going to bring in like, oh, you're gonna go through Monster Hunter World like the story just really fast, or is it gonna be like, like a kid growing up in the jungle learning to fight off these monsters? No, I'll give you a quick little synopsis based on what Google has posted about this.
Oh, here we
Me
go.
and Jace were talking about how silly it had. I'll just tell you. We'll just break it down. A portal transmits Lieutenant Artemis and an elite unit of soldiers to a strange world where powerful monsters rule with deadly ferocity. Faced with relentless danger, the team encounters a mysterious hunter who may be their only hope to find a way home. They isekai'd a group of US Army soldiers into Monster Hunter World. The funny thing about that is I will post a link to the trailer in the description, is that they're like trying to shoot these monsters with guns and RPGs and just bullets after bullets, and the monsters are like, funny, that's not a bow and arrow. No, come here, and they just literally get their butts beat. It's so good. I think that was probably my favorite part, even though it is the most ridiculous part.
It is entirely ridiculous because technically, in theory, that should essentially work with, modern technology against a large creature.
It's just against a
But
dinosaur, basically.
they had to come up with like a solid reason for like, hey, you can't use those weapons. You have to use the ones that we provide you.
That's just silly. Just ooga booga magic. You can't use your guns. No. I would have loved to have seen a group of US soldiers try to like use their guns against just a fire breathing monster flying overhead dropping nipple bombs. Those nipple bombs would get you every time. So, we're both going to
Amazing.
give we're both going to give predictions for the plot and predictions for the ending, which after reading the synopsis, I'm just going to throw out there only rule of this is they're obviously going to go home, because
Yeah.
why wouldn't they? But I'll let you start off. How do you think the movie's going to go, and how do you think it's going to end?
Oh goodness. So I will say I have seen a couple different trailers, so I know a little bit more about some of the stuff that will happen. Um, I do know that some of the monsters from that world do end up in our world, essentially. So you're seeing a Rathlos actually like attacking a plane.
Clane?
So
Clane?
yeah, an act a plane with people on it. It's like actually like in our world and attacking. So there are going to be some of the monsters appearing in the modern world. I did see, and this is where I'm kind of intrigued as to where the story may go. There was a creature shown on there of a monster called Gore Magala, which was featured in an older game. This thing was nuts. It had these really weird black scales on it where, like, it would use those scales as a way of being able to detect its surroundings because it was blind. So it would scatter the scales and then use like almost like an echolocation with these antenna on it to try and see the world around it. Well, these scales also had a side effect if monsters breathed them in. It would essentially give something called the frenzy virus to the monster. They would start going hyper aggressive. Eyes would glow red. They would start attacking anything and everything that they would see. There were moments where I remember seeing a moment where a monster dropped down dead after being attacked by a pack. Well, it had inhaled the spores, the scales of this monster beforehand. So it actually came back up and started attacking everything around it until it eventually just dropped dead again,
Zombie monsters.
essentially.
Yeah, of
And
course.
this monster is in that movie. I have seen the image of it. So I have a feeling that the frenzy virus may potentially come into play here for this movie, which if it does, I'm excited.
Okay. Okay. So, alternatively, since I've only watched the main trailer, I honestly predicted almost like an Avatar, the Blue People movie, where these people have to like literally Avatar, where they had to acclimate towards, instead of just the one guy acclimating towards the Blue People way, it's literally this group of people having to acclimate to the Monster Hunter way, which I know they're going to get transported there by Darude Sandstorm. They're going to acclimate. They're going to transport back, but they're like, "Oh no, the portal's still open and monsters flood in." But now I'm going to steal a bit of yours and say that they're frenzied in the real world, and they're like, the US government's got to step in and be like, "Look, you were in their world. What have you learned?" And you're like, "All right, you see these two knives? These are more effective than every gun you have." And they're like, "Ah, he's got dementia. Kill him." And they're like, "No, wait." And they just throw it at one of the monsters and it falls over. And they're like, "Oh," that's it. And then it's going to be just a big old clash. And they're going to shove all the monsters back in except a really small, cute one, not realizing it's going to grow up to be big and evil. That's going to reopen the portal. Monster Hunter 2, baby. Predicted.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. There are 5 main games and a bunch of sequels, so why wouldn't they leave it open for a second if it does good?
True. I think the main reason they brought in soldiers was because they were like, oh, they probably predicted that like normal people who don't play video games and don't really like nerdy things like Monster Hunter and they don't really understand it or haven't played it, they probably are like, let's just bring in a familiar element and just try to write it into the mix. But they isekai'd them.
So, a couple things I will make note of here. They did bring in the main actress from the Resident Evil movies,
Oh.
which Resident Evil is also owned by Capcom. So they're bringing in an element from a previously already established series that people will recognize as well for a main actor or actress. And I'm almost going to treat it kind of like with the Godzilla movies.
Mm-hmm.
More focus on the story, more focus on large monsters and a lot of action. Like, I can easily see people going in and wanting to watch it simply because there's a large fire breathing dragon attacking the city.
Okay, I can see that. My
I,
only, my last point is that I just pray that there is no love story. Just no
oh,
love
please,
story.
no.
Please, just, there's no reason to add this element. I'm almost scared that they're not going to be able to fill time with interesting things about Monster Hunter that like normal people would like really enjoy. So they're like, let's just fill time by throwing in goopy, gross love scenes that make no sense between like the soldier and the huntsman. No, don't do that.
I really hope not, because I
No.
did notice quite a few recognizable characters. I saw the Admiral, if you probably remember him, the guy with like the really crazy wild blonde hair.
Yep.
The handler was in there. The field
Pard.
team leader, yeah, Pard. The
Pard.
field team leader, who Matthew Mercer plays, is the main hunter that the actress deals with the entire time. The one
Mm.
who's basically telling her, you know, you can't use your guns. You have to use either this bow, this giant greatsword, the weapons from there.
Yeah.
I got to see several monsters that I recognized from older franchises featured in there, so I would like to see a little bit more on that one. I did notice the Meowscular chef got featured in a new trailer.
Okay. Okay. I'm okay
So
with
I'm
this.
I'm excited to see this cat come into, like realization for, get to see it like actually interact with everyone, especially since it was wielding a weapon for a brief moment in a scene.
Okay.
So it does get the chance to fight.
Maybe we'll just. Well, I believe that's all the time we have. Jace, where can people find you? Do you want people to find you, or are you going to be a recluse for the next 50 years? Let us know.
If anyone wants to get a hold of me, I don't really social media too much. YouTube and Twitch are my two main platforms on that one. Um, my YouTube channel is Anime Master 1991, and then the same with my Twitch channel, Anime Master 1991. I try to make it as easy as possible for any of my friends and anyone who wishes to talk to try and find and get a hold of me. If anyone's interested in jumping into Monster Hunter World and requires any assistance, or if anyone has any questions about the game, I am more than willing to help them out. Just know that the only platform I do not have the game on is Xbox. So if you're looking to join in on a hunt there, that's not me.
All right. So this has been the NerdLore podcast. Please check us out on Podbean, YouTube, soon coming to Apple, Google, iHeart, hopefully. But
Nice.
have a good night.